Hey everybody, this is Dr. Powers. We're going to just look at assignment number 2, or assignment from module 2. We're asked to take a look at some real estate county data and do a little bit of analysis. So we're going to go through these the parts of these project one by one, and we'll kind of go through how you do this using Excel. So first off, the assignment is found under the assignment information, the module 2 assignment guidelines and rubric. And the scenario is that you're trying to get a sense of the median, how the square footage of a piece of property relates to the median price of the house in that county. So what we're going to take is the real estate county data. I'm going to download that, and actually it's an Excel file, so you're going to need to use Excel to do this analysis. You can use Excel Online, Office 365. We have a bunch of different options that you can use, but you can get that for free from SNHU, and details are in the announcement. So here we're taking a look at the data. I'm going to enable editing first off, just so that I can work with this. The assignment is asking us first off to get a random sampling of 30 rows of data. That's the first thing you're asked to do. And so the technique that is going to be useful for doing that is to instead of just picking the first 30 rows is not a random sample, and just going down to somewhere in the list and selecting 30 contiguous rows is also not really a random sample, because those are going to be dependent on each other, because there's some they're going to be probably in the same state, for example. So that's not an independent random sample. What we want is every row to be equally likely to be selected in our sample. And the method we can use is to give a random number to each row and then sort by those random numbers. There's a formula in Excel that does this, and to enter the formula, I'm going to put in this next column of the random numbers. I'm going to put equals, and then RAND, and then a little bit at a parenthesis, open parenthesis, and a close parenthesis. That's the entire function. Hit enter, and it will generate a random number between 0 and 1. And that can be copied down to all of these rows. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, you can actually click the little corner box and drag it to copy it, but to copy it all the way down, I'm going to actually just select one of these rows and click, do Control C, because I'm on a Windows, or you copy it however you copy on your machine. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and select this cell here and hold Control and Shift and press up. This is a nice little shortcut. So Control Shift up will go all the way up to the next cell that is filled with something. And so that was a quick way of selecting all of them, and I'm going to paste. You can click paste to paste the formula, and every single one of these cells now has a random number. So what I want to do is take my data, and I'm going to I think if I just select these cells here and I do Control Shift down, I'm going to go down to the full list of the data. I don't care about these rows at the top with this like header information, and I'm going to go to sort. Sort is here, sort and filter. You can get that also under the data tab. You have the sort button. If I just click A to Z sort, it's going to do it by the first row, and that's not what I want. I want to sort it by that last column, column G. So I'm going to click sort, and it already knows that I have headers, and so it's not going to be including this first row as something that's going to get sorted. That'll stay there. I'm going to sort by column G. It doesn't matter really if it's smallest to largest or largest to smallest. All we need is a way of shuffling up these rows in a random order, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Click OK, and every time now you can see I sorted by the last column, but then immediately those random numbers got refreshed. Doesn't matter. Every time we make a change to any cell, all of those formulas are going to be refreshed. If I put a 5 over here and press enter, everything gets refreshed to new random numbers. Doesn't matter. I have my random shuffling, and now I can take my sample of my 30 rows. So I'm going to select from rows 6 down to 35. That will be 30 rows of data. So from row 5 down to 35, that includes the header. So I got the header, and so I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it on a new sheet. I'm going to call this my sample. I'm going to paste this data here, which I think just as a basic paste. Okay, so I got my data. This is my random sample of 30 counties in the United States, which give the median listing price, the median dollars per square feet, and the median square footage. And what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be calculating some sample statistics from here using some Excel functions. And what I'm going to do what we're going to do is we're going to look at what we do with our random sample. So this is our random sample. We're going to, let's see, we're going to calculate some sample statistics. We're going to calculate the mean, the median, and the standard deviation of the median listing price and the median square foot variables. So we're looking at the columns F and D. And the things what we want, I'm going to type them down here in row 33. I'm going to type in the mean, median, and the standard deviation. I'll do STD DEV. Okay, as our little abbreviation of those. We can calculate these using formulas, as I said before. And the formula for the mean is the average. Excel calls it average. So I'm going to type in equals AVERAGE, average, use an open parenthesis, and then I'm going to select all of my rows of data. I'm going to go from that row up to, so that would be row 31 up to 2. So it's actually column D 2 down to 31. So you can see the formula is D2 colon D31. That's a way of showing a range in Excel. And now that that's good, I'm going to close the parenthesis, hit enter, and the average is calculated for me. Median is a similar formula. I type in MEDIAN, and I do the exact same thing. Open parenthesis, and I'm going to select all of these. Close the parenthesis. If you like to just type in D2 colon D31, no one's stopping you. You can do that. That's the median, and the standard deviation is I have to put in the equals STDEV dot S. Now that's an important thing. Standard deviation, there's two formulas you can use. There's the population standard deviation and the sample standard deviation. You only want to use the population standard deviation if the data you're looking at represents the entirety of the population data. And it does not, and it hardly ever will in your life. So you want to get used to using the .s suffix on the formula. But after you put it in that, then you just select all of those numbers. Oops, don't need the first row. I think if that was included, I think it would just be ignored because it's text. We can test that out actually. Yeah, that doesn't make a difference. But still, I'm going to still be a little bit more careful there. Now I've got the mean, the median, and the standard deviation for my median listing price. If I were to, I could do the exact same thing, type in all of those here. One nice thing Excel will do for me though is if I copy the formulas to a different cell, it copies the ranges relative to where that new cell is. For the mean, if I copy it and paste it here, it's going to paste the formula and it will be looking at the mean of those 30 numbers that are straight above it. The one thing it's going to do also, it's going to also paste the formatting, which is the dollars formatting. If I press Control V, it's going to format that as dollars, but that's not really what I want. Now I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to instead show you another little trick. Of course, there's different ways of doing this, but there's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to copy these 3 cells, copy all 3 of them, click on here where I want the mean of the median of these square footage, and I'm going to, under paste, there's some options. I'm just going to paste this fx, that's the formula. I'm not going to paste the formatting, just the formula. And then I've got it. These are that's the mean, the median, and the standard deviation for the square footage for those counties. So that's great. We want to take a look at the next piece, which is to create a scatter plot. And the scatter plot is done by, in Excel, under the Insert tab. There is a bunch of different charts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, it says I want to have the X and Y variables. So I want, here we're trying to estimate the median listing price from the median square footage. So square footage is something that we can measure for some house, and then we want to use that as attempt to use that as a predictor for the listing price. Now, if I was to just select this column and hold down Control and select this other column as well, including the titles, that should get me a nice scatter plot. If I insert, now this, you can see this little icon here is where you get the scatter plot, and I just want to put in the dots. Now you can see the problem here is it's got the square footage on the on the y-axis and the money on the on the x-axis. Sorry, I'm saying it backwards. We should be able to change that. Let's see if we can switch the row and column. Click that button, and oops, it doesn't. That's not the way it's done. So let's cancel this. Here's the thing. In Excel, by default, it wants the X variable to be the first variable. There's a couple things we could do to make that easier for us. We can actually take all this data and just copy and paste it here. I know this is a little bit sloppy way of doing it, but hey, it gets the job done. Excel is not built for statistics. We're using Excel. There's going to be hacky ways of doing a lot of these things, but I'm going to teach them to you. So we're going to select these where the square footage is in column F, and now the median listing price is in column G. And now I'm going to insert my scatter plot. All right, so we've got median listing price based on square footage. Now this does not have axis labels. I'm going to add some stuff to it. I'm going to add axis titles, and so I'm going to change this to median listing price, and this is of course in dollars. And oops, that's, I hit enter and then all of a sudden it okay. And then here we have square foot, or this is median square feet. All right. One thing that we have is the axes. They both start at 0, which it's not a big problem for the money, but it gives us a big gap on the for the square footage. I'm going to click on this formatting button. I'm going to move this over a little bit and show you how to format this this axis. Oh, you know what? Chart filters. Let's just go to, I'm going to right click. I'm on a PC, so I can right click on this, and I'm going to change this. You see, format the axis. Here's where we have a bunch of options, and the minimum I want to change to the minimum square footage. I'm going to put it at 1,000 because there's no need to go all the way down to 0. No houses have 0 square footage. And I don't know why this is taking up the whole space. Let's format the, yeah, we'll go from 1,000 up to 3,000 looks fine. And The other thing I'm going to add here, we're asked to include a trend line. Trend line in Excel is easy to get for a scatter plot. You can go up to, let's see, I'm going to close the formatting, and you can click on the plus to add a chart element. And you can see, there's a trend line. That's the bottom one. There it is. You can click, just add the trend line like that. And this trend line has a point at the end of it. Was that there before? It just happens to go through that point. Yeah, so there you go. There's our trend line, and let's see. I think that's really what we're asked to do. There's a couple of questions we're asked to look at. One question we're asked is, is there an association between X and Y? And that's questions really getting at, do you see this trend line going upwards or downwards, or is it kind of flat? If the trend line was flat, that means there's no real association between the two variables, median square footage and the median listing price. If your trend line slopes upwards or slopes downwards, then there is a relationship. It would probably be unusual for the trend line to slope downwards, which would mean that as the square footage increases, listing price tends to decrease. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It would make more sense for the larger houses to cost more, right? This course, we're looking at the median square footage for the county and the median listing price for the county. So it doesn't mean that these houses, the square footage matches up with the listing price, but you could probably estimate that approximately they do. So anyway, it looks like there is a trend, and I would say that the biggest kind of outlier that we can see is this one point, and you can see 0.1835. It's a house, or it's a county where the median size was 1835 square feet, but the listing price was $705,000, and you can just go through the data and see where that is. It is here. It's in San Diego. Okay, so I happened to grab San Diego in my data, and we got an outlier where an outlier in this case is some point of data which really is far from the trend line, noticeably far. And this one is definitely that falls outside of what you would expect to see. San Diego, of course, it's not square footage that's driving the price of the houses. It's other things about San Diego that's leading to higher house prices. So that's a great example of an outlier. You may have others. You may have one with massive square footage and where the price is not what you would expect. Here I do have one point that is very high square footage, and it's the highest square footage I have, which is this. I think it's this one here in Fayette, Georgia. Large houses, but the expected house price, the median house price, does not fall far from the trend line. It's what you would expect. In fact, it's almost exactly what you would expect. It looks like it's exactly on the trend line, which is what made me think that was some artifact of the scatter plot, but that's actually a real point of the data as well as the end point of the trend line. That's just a coincidence. Don't expect that to happen with your data. So, so this is a good overview of assignment number 2, and I hope this is helpful. Of course, you have a template that you want to use to write this up and make it into a nice summary report. Explain the statistics, include your plot, and submit that nicely. You probably want to save it as a document or just as a PDF. Those would both go through the system nicely, but make sure it looks nice because you want to you want to write it up as if you were presenting this to your supervisor. And you want to explain the statistics that you're using. What is the mean? What does the mean represent? What does the median represent? How is it different than the mean? What is standard deviation? How is it used to explain the spread of the data? One thing that you notice down here, the standard deviation for the median listing price didn't come in as dollars, but in fact it is dollars. I should format it. I can format it the same as the data above it. But so the standard deviation is it's in the same units as your data. So the standard deviation for median listing price is in dollars. The standard deviation of the median square footage is square feet. So this is all used to explain how far the data spreads. And as we learn a little bit more about the distribution, like the normal distribution, we'll have a better way of understanding standard deviation. In the meantime, you can think of it like it's roughly speaking the average difference from the mean, or the average deviation from the mean. That's roughly what the standard deviation is. So although some of the mean is $293,000 for the median square listing price, but there's a lot of variation from that. On average, these houses or these counties' median listing prices differ by $122,000. That's roughly the average difference. Some differ less and some differ more, but that's the average. So that gives you a sense of the spread. Of course, this is not technically what the standard deviation is. It's roughly what it is, and it's good enough for now. You'll get a better understanding as the course goes on. All right, I went on to explain that a little more. I think one thing that I didn't go over is comparing your data with the National Statistics and Graphs document, but that's something that you should be able to do. Talk about, you're going to be talking about how you got a truly random sample, and how you can talk a little bit about how some of the other methods would not have been a good way of getting a random sample. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.